Joining him is his colleague Elizabeth Barrette. A 30-year veteran of data and technology space, Liz Barrette is Dun & Bradstreet's finance and risk leader for Master Data. She also leads Dun & Bradstreet's advisory services organization. Liz previously served in the role of Distinguished Architect, Master Data, where she provided guidance and support to hundreds of Dun & Bradstreet's clients of all business types and sizes, such as IBM, Microsoft, Dell, Google, Verizon, and Amazon. Prior to this, as a practitioner for nearly a decade, Liz led or participated in several global master data programs, often as a customer of Dun & Bradstreet's. So welcome to session 17D. I will turn it over to Rupinder. And please silence all of your devices, put them on stun mode so we don't interrupt everyone. And by the way, if we're leaving questions till the end. And if you have a question to ask, please wait for me to bring the microphone to you so that those online can hear you and we can pick it up on the recording. Thank you. Turn it over to you.
Thank you, Stuart. Can you all hear me okay? Yes. Awesome. Well, good morning. And thank you so much for joining us this morning. And we are really excited to be here with you. And I hope you all, over the last couple of days, thank you, were able to get the most out of the conference. How many of you are here for the first time? Okay. Awesome. Did you all like it so far? Good content? Awesome. Perfect. All right, so what we are going to talk to you today about is how AI tells you what your data alone can't. You know, there's a lot of hype about artificial intelligence over the last couple of years, especially. Most recently with ChatGPT coming on board, people are wondering how to best leverage it. There's a lot of discussion around what's good and what's bad. Can you really trust the system? And what we wanted to do today is, being a data company in the business of data management for over 180 plus years, we wanted to share with you some of the best practices, some of the pitfalls that we're seeing in the marketplace, but also, you know, how we're leveraging and how our customers are leveraging AI to make sense of all the complexities that data has to offer. As you can all attest to, being in the data business, you know, data sometimes alone can't really help us with getting the insights that we need. I mean, it could if you had unlimited amount of resources and time to go through the data that you collect on your customers, your vendors, your suppliers, and all the other things that basically generate data within your organization. But we don't have the luxury of doing that. Traditional mechanisms and ways of analyzing and getting insights out of data aren't really applicable anymore. So we have to rely on some of the technology, and we should. You know, this is the time of, I guess, technology evolution, where we now actually have the ability to leverage a lot of the cool stuff and make sense of data and make data sexy, right? Previously, it was a boring thing. You're a data analyst, you're a data steward. Okay, so you look at data all day. But with the evolution of technology and all the cool things that we can do with it, the timing is really, really good, where the data experts or the data professionals are in the limelight now. You know, what we are seeing within the industry, what we're seeing within our customers is that a lot of reliance on data experts to make sense of data and to help businesses make impactful decisions. So today, we will cover with you a brief introduction and challenges that we face within the data management, just to really lay the foundation of where we are, the baseline, and then some of the benefits and how to best use artificial intelligence and some of the emerging technology to analyze and make sense of data. We'll then share with you Dun & Bradstreet's approach. As I mentioned, having been in the data business for many years, we have learned a few things over years, and we will share with you some of the things that we are doing to leverage AI to make sense of data. And then finally, we'll share a couple of real-world customer examples to showcase how the customers are using AI within their data organization. And then we'll, as Stuart mentioned, we'll keep 10 minutes or so at the end for Q&A. So I'm going to skip over this. Stuart already introduced us. And this is not the right deck. No. Sorry, we had an updated version sent yesterday, and it seems like we still have the old one. So Liz, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, first of all, I want to start by saying I know I've been in data and technology for 30 years, but I just found out that what I've been doing is not sexy, but thank you for helping me get it to a point where it might be sexy. So now I'm getting excited again. I'm going to kind of just level set a little bit about data in general for us, right? So, you know, this shouldn't be surprising to any of us. These are the typical challenges that we're all facing, right? The messy data, the lack of trust. As data leaders, we're always hearing, well, it's not good enough, right? The siloed applications where things are just not talking together. The inability to have that visibility on our revenue. So difficult when you're trying to, when we go out and talk to customers and we just ask, how many customers do you have? We still can't even answer that question, never mind how much revenue they're bringing in. And then, of course, the gaps that we have in reporting. It's been so difficult, not only for me as a practitioner, but now supporting our customers, not being able to report accurately and appropriately about our business in general. So I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into some of these things. And again, let's just start talking about what happens with our siloed data, right? Just the sheer fact that it impairs our decision making. We need our data to help set our strategies. When we don't have the data in such a way that we can actually inform the strategy appropriately, we're still kind of going off that gut, right? The best guess. Of course, it decreases our efficiency. When you have data going across, how many times do you have redundancy, trying to do the same thing, bringing it together? I've worked with Excel. I am an Excel expert. VLOOKUPs, I can do that in my sleep, right? Like most of us. The fact of the matter is it's not where we want to be today. And then, of course, that customer experience. I've been a customer, a customer and a prospect more times than not, right? You're getting that same thing over and over again. We actually have a survey that we put out to create a B2B data report. And over a third of our customers, again, just raise their hand that siloed data becomes a really, really difficult capability for them, or lack of capability. That data management is still amazingly critical. Then we look and we say, okay, let's take it to the next level, right? Data is everywhere, and what happens when you have more data than we know what to do with, and it's just continuing, right? Once the pandemic hit, I think it became much more evident about how important data was when we had to have people working from home, right? Having that data and being able to understand where everybody was and how to get information to them. Things started to escalate. So you look across data management challenges bigger than ever. Data overload, now we're trying to process and analyze it all. The storage costs, right, they're definitely increasing. Yes, maybe storage costs have gone down, but now you have more data, so of course the storage costs kind of exponentially go with that. Compliance and privacy issues. Being careful and stringent about our security and what we're doing with our data. The analytical challenges, the tools, the capabilities that we need, and of course those resources that can now manage and work with the data, and then being able to take some of those more complex tools that we need to use to help manage our data takes it to another level. So, we think about resources. I've talked to quite a few of you over the last few days, and resources in data management is definitely a difficulty for all of us. Again, another third of our respondents said, resources is a definite challenge, trying to get people who understand and can help with the management of data. And then when you do have these resources, or lack thereof, now that data quality, again, you're suffering. It becomes, a deficiency for you when you don't have the resources that can help you manage. We're still doing an awful lot of that by hand. It reduces our innovation. When we're working on the heavy lifting of getting our data where it needs to be, when and where do you have time to think about innovation, and how can you use those few resources to innovate? And then, of course, it brings security risks, right? As soon as you have some difficulties with your data, now all of a sudden, you have to look at security at an even more heightened level. And I want you to just think about, if you think about what happens with data quality and difficulties with your data management, it impacts every single portion of your business across all the different departments. I'm going to focus on a couple we haven't really talked about yet, like supply chain risk, right? Commission tracking, go-to-market strategy problems. We've already talked about revenue reporting issues, but you have forecasting inaccuracies. I mean, if you think about all the different components throughout your business, when you don't have great data quality or data management, there are definitely pockets here and here, but when you look at it holistically, if you're not looking at it and managing it appropriately, it really impacts your business. And then as you think about, now we're talking a lot about AI. I got to tell you, we are more than excited about AI. It's like all of a sudden, people are starting to realize that data is critical because you can't have AI without the data. So for us, when we heard, when we're starting to see this wave, we're all in because again, being a data company, there's nothing better than everybody talking data. That's why we're here. Like we're here with all our friends talking data, right? And I think if you look at just the extraordinary resource dedication that it takes for data management, it really does impact your bottom line. If we look at just some of the research that's coming out of the Harvard Business Review, 50% of people who work with data are still doing some of the manual tasks necessary to get the data quality that you're looking for. The lookups, the trying to find relevance, the trying to structure and review the data. And then if you think about it, we have all these people doing things reactively. We still see that same metric that if you wait till things go downstream versus working with it up front, the cost is 10 times the amount that it would have been if you got that done up front. So, if you look at these just inefficiencies and difficulties, we really still need to think about what we need to do here. Let's just do a quick straw poll if we don't mind. Just trying to understand in the room what our biggest data management challenge is. Lack of trust in your data. You can raise your hand as many times as you think appropriate. Do you have any lack of trust in your data today? Please just do me a favor, raise your hand. Okay. Yeah, I'm kind of down here too. I don't want to admit to it either. Disconnected apps and systems. Do you not have your data talking? Okay, still the same. Lack of visibility into revenue. Would you like to have better visibility? Still? More of that? No one wants to raise their hand on that one. We all know our revenue, right? And then, of course, gaps in reporting. Do you feel like you're reporting, or can you answer all the questions that you as leaders are being asked to provide? Any gaps there?
That's awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I know you're accurate and truthful.
We
right?
we have gaps in reporting as well. So.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is like even as a data company, we want to do more. We want to do better. There's so much we can learn from our data. So for us, we not only continue to work on ourselves, but this is what we want to bring to our customers and support businesses like yours.
Now, before we go into that, we covered some of the stuff here. So just going back, sorry, one more time. Is there anything that you guys want to share from, some of the challenges that you're facing? I know we have the Q&A at the end, but I just wanted to give you the opportunity if there's anything that, the rest of the audience could benefit from, some of the challenges that you might, a unique challenge? Yes. 1 second. We'll give you a microphone.
I think the first one, the lack of trust in your data, has sort of evolved to the lack of trust of the AI, right? So, it's sort of like two sides of the same coin.
How are you using AI today?
Well, I'm from a hydroelectric company, and so we use our information to sort of take sensor information to try to identify issues in our electrical grid.
Sure.
So it's sort of high stakes, right? So you don't want to be wrong.
No, no, absolutely. And I think that's one of the key components that we're talking about today is if you don't have the foundational trust in that data, when you build your AI on top of it, now all of a sudden, you might have some difficulties there, but also the AI can help us identify some of those issues that we're having in our data.
Yeah, so with that, it's a nice segue into the AI piece. Again, before we dive into AI, one thing I want to make sure, I think everyone is fully aware, but I was surprised by speaking to a couple of folks over the last 2 days, where I thought they said data is not important for AI to work effectively. So I was surprised by that. Is there anyone here who thinks that is? Okay, so again, in AI, artificial intelligence, if you really peel the onion, it goes back many years. This isn't really a new concept. It's been evolving over many, many decades. Going back to the predictive analytics and models that we did for customer churn prediction and things like that, they all relied heavily on data, right? Data is the foundation. So in order for AI, the Gen AI especially to work, you still need to feed it the right amount of data so that you can create a model, you can train that model so that the model can help you predict what's going to happen, but also answer some of the things that you want the model to answer for you. Once you have the data as the foundation, it then sort of kickstarts the journey and starts addressing your business concerns. Until we have the data as the foundation, AI itself isn't really going to work. So AI, as I mentioned, it's been evolving over the time, and the tech providers have been sort of watching out for that. Microsoft, Google, all the big ones, they have been in this business for many, many years. And with the evolution of some of the Gen AI models, like ChatGPT, for example, we saw that it had over 100+ million users within a month of its launch. We hadn't really seen that previously in technology. Now, if you look at some of the other emerging tech like Netflix, Instagram, it took them about 2.5 months or 2.5 years in some cases to get to that 100 million. Netflix was 2.5 years, I believe, to get to that 100 million mark. Whereas with ChatGPT, this was the fastest growing tech that got 100+ million users within days versus months. Now, this was recently beaten by Threads once Facebook launched Threads. So the first day, I believe it reached 100 million users. So again, it just goes to show you that emerging tech is really making and paving the way for the way people want to think and utilize this technology in their business decision making over the time. So ChatGPT is one that we need to watch out for, right? Especially when it comes to data management. Now there's DALL-E as well, right? Which is basically text to image. So if you give it some text, it creates an image for you. So it helps you, get some creative images for your marketing collateral, for your internal training, and some of the things that previously you would have to go out and find those images or purchase those images. So DALL-E makes it easier from AI perspective. And then Microsoft, Google, they both announced previously that they're embedding their OpenAI and Bard into their search engines so that it makes the experience much, much better for the user as well. So that's the emergence of some of the technology that we're going to be talking about today. So how AI machine learning can turbocharge your business. For those of you that are interested, as I mentioned, we had updated the slides, so you can just ping us or send us a note on the app, and we'll send you the latest slides. We added a few more slides in the AI section, which didn't make it into this version. So I'm just going to talk to some of those because I have them. So the first thing that AI can help with turbocharging our business is, first of all, making it very efficient, right? So when you think of ChatGPT or you think of Bard, you think of some of the other stuff, efficiencies in automating some of the laborious tasks that people do is one thing that could really help the business. To give you an example, I was talking to a customer, and one of the things they mentioned to me was that they used ChatGPT, but a local instance of it, and they trained it on their own documents and things like that, and it helped them cut down on the turnaround time. When someone had a question on a specific internal application, they would actually ask the interface, and then the interface would right away give them the answer, versus previously, they would have to find a resource. Sometimes it was the product resource, sometimes it was the support resource, but now with this evolution of ChatGPT for internal use case, they were able to analyze, upload the documents, all the support use cases that they created, and the user was able to quickly get the information on their fingertips. So that makes it very, very efficient. And these other resources, like the product person, the support person, they can focus on some of the other high-touch issues that they need to address. So that's one of the examples of the efficiencies. The second is making smarter decisions, so offering deeper trend forecasting and analysis. So if you think about the finance team, Liz and I work on a daily basis with our finance team because we need to understand how the business is performing. Now, if we were to do that analysis on a daily basis, it would take us, again, we can't do that. It would take us, a couple of weeks to do the analysis. But with AI and some of the emerging stuff in ChatGPT and Bard, we could feed some of the financial stuff to the internal instance. Again, you don't want to upload it to OpenAI and have all the stuff available because it's confidential, but you can use a variant of it internally, and you can use it to understand some of the trends that you're seeing in the business. Which segments are doing better than the others? Which products are performing better? So some of the analysis can be offloaded to artificial intelligence to help with the pattern recognition. Delivering better customer experience. This is an area where we are seeing a lot of customers delving into, and this is where the chatbots come into play, right? So One of the key use cases is the customer support use case. You create a chatbot, which is sitting on top of this OpenAI large language models, and then it basically feeds, the training model is fed all the existing previous, cases and support tickets to this, and then it starts helping the user. So you ask it a question, it gives you a response back. It's almost like talking to a person, but instead it's offloading that work to a bot. Are there any other use cases that you're seeing or using within your organization for AI, apart from all the 3 key areas that we mentioned here? That anyone want to share? Is anyone using AI other than you that you just mentioned within your organization today to help with data? Yes? OK. Do you want to share? Or OK, all right. That's OK, cool. So again, this is an emerging area, and we are still very much experimenting with it. But once we do that, I already covered some of these things, so we'll quickly skip over these. Unlocking the hyper efficiency. Again, the scale and the complexity of data that we deal with, it makes it easier using AI to help us with understanding the automation that we can do through these emerging technologies, supply chain issues, right? So understanding which suppliers could be riskier, how do we mitigate that risk, how do we optimize the supply chain is another area which is being used by customers with AI. Predictive analytics is still at the forefront of everything. But what AI has done is, instead of us creating models previously where you would actually create a model for a specific thing, using AI, you feed it all the data that you have within your organization, again, your local instance. And then it basically allows you to predict not just one thing on a customer. It could help you predict multiple things. All you need to do is just in a prompt using natural language processing models. You ask the AI, as an example, tell me which customers can I target for selling product A to that are already buying product B. So previously you would do a model, but now you just ask AI to help with that. It does that segmentation for you. It even tells you which customers might be at, again, if you can combine this with third-party data like intent, it could even tell you which customers are in the market looking for other stuff, right? Like similar products to you that you're selling. So you can actually target that audience as well with cross-sell and upsell. Finally, cybersecurity is a huge, huge thing right now. There are so many attacks that are being formed and created right now, and all the phishing stuff that happens. With the AI, it makes it easier for the organization to detect patterns. If there's some sort of unnatural behavior from a user, it could identify and it could alert the cybersecurity team that this computer or this user is trying to do something which they normally don't do. So there's a lot of pattern detection stuff that happens with an AI that can help organizations. So I'm going to skip over this one. We covered it. And then finally, I just wanted to share with you a quote from Bill Gates, which is, again, on AI and technology. And what he said was, the advance of technology is based on making it fit in so that you don't really even notice it, so it's part of everyday life. That's the thing with AI. When you think of artificial intelligence, we have to think of it, how do we embed it into our everyday things so that it becomes natural for the user, so that the user doesn't think that, oh, this is being done disjointedly by a computer. It feels like it's a connected experience and it's a part of the workflow. Now, talking about ChatGPT 4, how do we use ChatGPT for data management? That is the talk. ChatGPT basically allows us not just a question and answer that we typically use it for. Today, 100+ million users on a daily basis use it, but they use it mostly for, hey, ChatGPT, tell me about this, tell me about that. But if you use it in the context of data management, it could really make your lives easier. And one of the things you can do with it is data quality. It could help you identify issues within your data. If you feed it a source and then you ask ChatGPT, tell me the level of duplication, tell me some anomalies, some outliers, it can very quickly go into it and it can tell you that from this source, this is the fill rate for this particular column that you might be interested in, which might be needed for decision making. Similarly, for data governance, this is a huge topic, and people are shying away from using the word governance because some users think that you're trying to police them. but it's still very relevant as a data management professional. So from ChatGPT perspective, you can use ChatGPT to create policies, governance policies, documentation that can then be used to educate the user, that can then be used to help the organization secure its data. And even go as far as automating some of the things where ChatGPT can help send alerts if they're noticing some variance or drift in your data from governance perspective. So that can also be used using ChatGPT. Finally, data integration. The thing with data integration previously has been that you need some sort of an ETL, some sort of third-party integrators, or you need MDM systems to help you integrate. And now, again, that is still valid. But at a smaller scale, if you are using, or you're using in combination with that, the power becomes exponential. So you could use ChatGPT to help integrate multiple sources together, especially if you're doing a one-time project where you need to bring 3 different sources together. You can load that into ChatGPT and you can ask it to help integrate those sources. It can tell you the data dictionary. It can tell you the data models that can be used, the architecture that can be created from it, so that you can create a level of integration which would be sufficient for the use case that you're trying to undertake. Now, there's many other use cases, but these are the 3 key categories that we believe that we see customers utilize the Gen AI models or ChatGPT for. And they can be very, very helpful. But keep in mind, all this is still very, very new, right? So people are still experimenting with it. So keep that in your mind when you go back and you try to utilize ChatGPT or some of this Gen AI. Some of the things to keep in mind are defining clear goals. What are you trying to accomplish that AI can help you with, right? So being very, very clear and thoughtful. And as a part of that, you would also define the categories of data that can be loaded into OpenAI or within your own confidential instance of OpenAI APIs or large language models. ChatGPT can be used for, as I mentioned, for routine tasks. You can identify talking to your stakeholders or within your own organization, what are the kind of repetitive and laborious tasks that you have to do on a daily basis that are very time consuming, but they can be automated using ChatGPT. As I mentioned before, example, you can utilize that. Like if someone is coming to you and trying to understand the quality of a source, you can automate that and you can create dashboards using ChatGPT that can be shared with your stakeholders on a daily basis. Train and calibrate. So use diverse, relevant, and high quality data that represents tasks you want ChatGPT to open. So this is very, very important. As I mentioned previously, it's really the data that goes into a model, which is what makes the model work or not work. Making sure that you have high quality, diverse set of data so that you don't introduce bias into your data. So you don't introduce the ability of the model to make incorrect decisions or hallucinations, right? So make sure you give the data, give the right data to the model so that AI can then help you with these repetitive tasks. And then finally, train your users. Make sure that your users know how to use ChatGPT or how not to use ChatGPT. Or if you want to have some sort of, as I alluded to earlier, if there's an organization within your company that can handle the ChatGPT part, but then they can offload some of the outcomes of ChatGPT to the stakeholders, that's another model that could also work. Monitor the performance. So the thing with AI is that it can at times start to drift, right? Depending on various circumstances. If the data changes or the use cases change, you could notice some drift within the responses you get from AI. So making sure that you keep track of that, you monitor your AI, your large language models, and you feed them the data. The nice thing about AI and machine learning is that it can learn from itself and it can learn from the behavior of the users. So if you continue to feed diverse data as things change, it will continue to improve upon itself and give you the right information. So make sure you keep that in mind. Stay ethical and compliant. Ethics is another huge thing that is right now talked about with AI. How do we make AI ethical? And for that, It's really making sure that whatever your organization has created from privacy and accessibility perspective, the policies and procedures, you keep that in mind as you're using AI. Take advantage of the strengths that AI has to offer. It doesn't replace human beings. It does not, at least for now, over the next few years. We don't expect it to replace data management. So use it as a combination. Use it as a tool that you can rely on as a data professional, and integrate with other systems. This goes back to the quote that Bill Gates had. So make sure that you integrate AI as a seamless experience as a part of the workflow, so that when a user is using it, they don't feel like a computer is just giving them a bunch of data analysis. It's a thoughtful response back to a problem they're presenting to you with as a part of it. And then finally, this is very, very true, and I think it's going to continue to be even more true as we rely more on AI, which is, if you just feed it garbage, it's going to produce garbage. And there's a couple of examples of that we have seen. So back in 2016, I don't know if you remember or not, Microsoft was experimenting with OpenAI at that time as well, and they introduced a robot or a bot called Trey. It was on, Tay, right? Sorry, Tay, yeah, thank you. And it was on Twitter. And basically, the intent was to make it a conversational bot so that it could talk to people and give responses back. But it was learning from the data that was being fed to it. And obviously, people started feeding it garbage. And then it started being very offensive. The responses came back to be very offensive. And Microsoft had to do damage control. They had to shut it down and then offer apologies to users. Similarly, we rely so heavily on self-driving cars, right? It's all with data that goes into making the model and make the decision where the car goes and how it operates, things like it. Again, it has evolved significantly with the amount of data that has gone to it. But over the last couple of years, if you go back to 2018, there was an accident from a self-driving Uber where a pedestrian was killed in Arizona. So those things are still possible, and that is because the AI has been evolving. We're at a point where in data management, luckily, we don't expect this to create life and death type of situations and risks, but we still have to be mindful with the data that we feed into it so that we can get the right decisions back. By the way, that quote we tried to use ChatGPT for this presentation as well, and then that quote is what we got out of ChatGPT. Next poll. I think I already asked this question, so we'll ask again. Are you using AI and ML in your data management today? Yeses? Please raise your hand if you are a yes. OK, a couple of yeses. No, but it's a priority. Anyone looking to use AI? OK. No, and I am not sure how. And finally, just no, you're not going to use it. All right. With that, let me pass it back to Liz.
So I know, we think about AI and it's very serious, but I have to say I went on Facebook this morning and I saw the latest of, using some of the AI, and it was about fresh salmon, swimming and whatnot. And it was a piece of raw salmon in the water, in a river. So you can see, when you looked at it, it's like, what is that? Oh, it's a piece of raw salmon in the river. It's not the actual fish going in. So depending on what you say, what you ask for, the data behind it, you just never know what you're going to come up with. But I'm really enjoying some of these latest things that are coming out, right? But again, if you think about it, it's all about the data that you put in, as Gurpinder mentions, in order to make sure that AI is telling you something that you don't know. So what I want to do is focus a little bit more about what we're doing at Dun & Bradstreet to incorporate the AI in helping our customers. And I think, again, if we focus just on master data, I want to explain and specifically why we're targeting this particular one, right? Master data, what we feel is no longer a nice to have, it is a must have. And again, as we start talking about more AI, more people are thinking about data within their company, not only for what they can use it for, but to make it an asset. So it's becoming, really is mainstream at this point. Not every company is doing it yet, but every industry, every company, every size really needs mastering to some extent. And of course, the market is growing because of that. There's a lot more going on here. And for us, with Dun & Bradstreet, we like to think that we've been mastering data for 180 years. Obviously very much in its infancy way back 180 years ago. But for us, we really had to look at the data as something incredibly foundational. We think about it from serious structure and governance. And now obviously as we've been working with our data and mastering it, we use AI as part of our process already. And one of the things that we also look at is, as we're trying to help our customers and we're trying to look at AI in that context with them, still goes down to 60% of time from most analysts is in cleaning and working with the data versus getting out some of the innovations and ideas from it and the results from it. So for us, when we're looking at this, when we're supporting our customers, mastering the data through some kind of automation and AI is going to continue to be critical. Again, setting just some foundational capabilities here. We look at data mastering with three different components: the people, resources, process, using data, using AI, and of course the technology component. When we're working with our customers, there's, and again, thinking about mastering, most of the businesses are looking at it from a technology perspective first. We always look at it from data first. Again, because we're a data company, because that's how we think about it. Is it the chicken and the egg? Is it the cart before the horse? The fact of the matter is it's all based on your data. So for us, when we're looking and working with some of the master data platforms, the traditional ones that are out there, as you can see on the left-hand side, they're really rule-based. The ones that you've typically worked with. As a data and master data practitioner for about 10 plus years, I used these capabilities, and we partner with many of them today, where you take your data, you bring it in, you use developers. It takes about 1 to 4 months to understand your data model, create your capability. Then you start writing the rules. Rules can take an awful long time. Creating the data model for me took a long time. It took several weeks as I was working with my different constituents. Then writing all the different rules to incorporate. We start typically with a base of rules, and then you're adding your custom rules on top of that. And again, that can take anywhere from 5 to 12 months. You start with that foundational from that technology company. You build on some of yours, and you continue building. The more sources you bring in, the more rules you have to create in order for you to get to that unified data. It can take months, sometimes years, for you to get to that actual value for your business. In today's work environment, nobody has that kind of time anymore. So as we add AI to that capability, we're shrinking that down significantly. And what we've done is we've started to create capabilities where we take that model, and now we're looking at some of those actual steps in there and how do we use AI and automate it. And the capability that we're bringing to the table today, called Connect Manage, uses the AI significantly. If you think about that whole middle section on the left-hand side, we use AI to get us there much faster. We have a model that we actually modeled and learned around all the D&B data. So I'll go into a little bit more about the volume of that data. But we train the model on every kind of variation of every business that we know of. And what we try to do, if we think about your data, you've got a portion of data, and we're trying to find every business out there and every contact out there, and we're mastering that in every variation. So if we train the model on all our data, and now we've also added all the ways that we see our potential customers looking at that data. Now we've trained a model that has all that incorporated. When we work with you on your specific data, now we already jump-started the whole program, because chances are most of your data now, when we marry it together, when we match it and cluster it to the data that we have within our model, now all of a sudden you're further ahead. We don't have to do all these rules. We've embedded that in the AI process that we have. So what might have typically taken months and months for us to do this with you before, now we literally can do this with you within weeks. So for us, it's significant changes in the efficiency and the efficacy of the process here. And it takes away a lot of the resources that are needed to do all that work up front. So you now have the ability to take that data and now use it in your innovation and use it within your process and your business very, very quickly. So for us, we use not only that connect capability, but we also really work within our data cloud. That's the real foundation from which we have here, between the data and the technology capability. So, I talked a little bit about Connect Manage, which is this new capability. It is a full MDM platform, but again, it's based on trying to get to a point where we can make sure as many of your businesses have a DUNS number attached to it as possible, so that then we can give you the insights. We become that Rosetta Stone for all the data that's out there as well. Most of the data has DUNS numbers attached to that, so we can take that third-party data, we can connect it to yours through the DUNS number, and we get you the insights that you need faster to make those more important business decisions. A little bit more about the data that you're going to be marrying your business to if you aren't working with D&B data today. Again, our whole idea is to go out and learn and find every single business that's viable out there today. Right now we have over 500, I think maybe even 23, 25 million businesses, but we know about many more that we just haven't put a DUNS number attached to it yet because it hasn't shown those signs of really doing commerce yet. So for us, again, we're out there trying to find every business for you. We update that business, we maintain it, we look at how these businesses connect to each other. We're trying to do all the heavy lift in your data management. Again, the trick is how can we take your data and overlap it like a Venn diagram to the data that we have so we can take that heavy lift on for you. And then again, become part of your data ecosystem so we can do that work for you and we become an extension of your team. Our quality is impeccable. Do we have everything perfect? Of course not. But our whole goal, what we have hundreds of people in technology and AI against, is looking at that data on a regular basis. 231 patents, 1.2 billion match points. These are the things that we work with every single day. Not only do we want to know about every business, but we want to know everything about the business that can help you in your decision making. So over 2,500 decision points. Security and compliance, that is, we can't do what we do without being very stringent and careful with it. And then, of course, we have significant expertise. We're a very large business, and what we do is data, and we know this data backwards and forwards. So when you're in your data management journey, when you're bringing AI into your capability, not only do we want to bring it to you, but we want to be able to help you and ensure that you have the expertise handy. So for us, we're making sure we give you that advisory service. So we want to go over just really fast some two use cases, and this really helps hopefully hone in on how AI is helping. So one particular business I'm going to harp on, and we've been working with them for 20, maybe even 30 years within their data management journey. And again, for us, the goal here was could we get DUNS numbers attached to all of their most important businesses? We've done very well. We've been managing their data management, but they've been at an 82, 83% match rate on their business data. And we've been kind of stuck there for about 5 years. We're like, what can we do different? And we make a point here, half a point there. But what we ended up doing is as we brought in our Connect Manage, the full AI capability, in addition to what we've been doing today, we are within months at a 92% match rate. And this happened very quickly because what we did is that AI helped us change not only the numerator, getting more matches, but it helped us change the denominator. We taught more to this business about their data than they ever knew. We actually were able to go in and look at some of the clusters there, and we realized that there's some data that they had and that they were counting that really didn't make sense and that they actually needed to clean out of their system. So for them, it's about growing their business, and by looking at this capability, by using this capability, now all of a sudden they have that ability to use this in a different way. By the end of July, we expect to be closer to 92, 93, 94%, and that's actually going to feed almost all of their growth capability. So they're very excited and happy with us. So within 4 or 5 months, we were able to do something we couldn't do for over 5 years. Gurpinder, talk to the next one.
Thank you, Liz. The next one is a global organization that focuses on health and hygiene products, and they're in over 150 plus countries with 46,000 employees. So as you can imagine, a company at that scale, they have tons of data, and to make it even more complex, they have sub-brands or organizations within their corporate portfolio that were generating lots of data. And at the corporate level, they were struggling to bring it all together. They had all the tools you can imagine, but it wasn't really getting to a point where they could eliminate duplicates. They were wasting a lot of resources, money on marketing to the same customer, not understanding who was a customer versus a prospect. They started working with us, and what we noticed over the first few months is that the duplication was reduced significantly. With our AI capabilities that we applied to the data that they brought in from multiple sources and organizations, we were able to assign a unique DUNS number to those, and that helped them identify companies that were duplicates. Further, with some of the other AI capabilities that Liz was talking to, we were able to take their match rate up to 90%. So that was a huge milestone for them, as they were using, previously they were using all the MDM tools and they were just not getting to that right level of match. With these capabilities, they got to that level, and then the result was they had a unique DUNS and they had a high confidence DUNS number, which is a unique identifier that DNB assigns, and that helped bring various reports together. So when executives were looking for understanding who their top global 20 customers were, they were able to bring it all together using the DUNS number, but also the linkage that we were able to discover for them, how companies were linked together. So that was a huge positive outcome for them, and the company was obviously very excited and happy about it, and they gave us a really nice quote as well as a result of it. Finally, we are coming to the end of the session, and we want to keep 10 minutes for any Q&A that we might have. Just to summarize, we mentioned we helped lay the foundation, hopefully, for the challenges that you all are facing, that we're seeing in the marketplace from data perspective, and how AI can help. But keep in mind that AI and ML is a valuable tool. It does not replace all the things that we need to still do within data management as a practice. The governance is still a key component of it, bringing the data together. AI can certainly help with it. But keep in mind when using AI to try it and use it with improving efficiencies, applying it to repetitive tasks that can be streamlined to help free up some of the resources that can help with some other data management activities. Gain insights to make smarter decisions. So look at the patterns that AI can detect for you, the analysis that it can do for you that typically would take weeks to do. It could do it very quickly. So apply it in that sense. Deliver better, more personalized experience, as we discussed, from chatbots perspective, analyzing your cases, your support, and your documentation to help internal and external users make better decisions. But all of the benefits rely, again, on the data that feeds into it. So make sure that you have high quality data that goes into your large language models or machine learning models, so that you can see the results that would be beneficial to the business. With that, we'll open it up to Q&A. Any questions in the room? Comments? Yes.
Thank you. Just forgive me if this is a dumb question, but you've talked a lot about match rates and matching to DNB data.
Yes.
Why is that important? What's the inherent value of being able to match to DNB data?
So that's a great question. What we are seeing in customers' scenario is that you have multiple sources. One thing you can do is you try to match it to your own source so that you know what your golden record is. So let's use customer as an example. You have multiple sources feeding data, and you want to identify that unique customer. So you can do source matching. So that's one way of doing it. Why DNB matching becomes very important is that when you're looking for additional insights on that customer, as an example, you are doing some marketing analysis, segmentation, you want to understand industry that they're in, you want to understand what families they're related to. So matching it to DNB helps get to that level of additional insight that can be put on top of it. But also, what a lot of our customers are using DNB DUNS number is that unique identifier within their organization. So if they don't match it to a DUNS number, which is the DNB match, then they're not able to make that customer flow through the systems because it's missing that unique identifier that is required for the downstream business to make decisions. Now, this is not the case with everyone, obviously, but the main key use case is getting to that additional insight that DUNS number unlocks for you.
Think about it too, like, as a practitioner, you're looking at many different sources, right? And you're going to look at which one do you think is the source of truth? Like, which one can you focus on? when you bring in a third-party referential system like a Dun & Bradstreet data, we actually are a foundation of truth. That's what we're doing. We're mastering it, right? So we actually inherently provide that to you as part of the capability. And then, of course, then you get all the benefits of having the DUNS number and the insights, et cetera, and us kind of being the Rosetta Stone. So I'll be honest, there are times that I didn't buy D&B data as part of the process. It's much a longer process to do it because you're looking at a system that may be 75% good in data quality as your best source of truth and matching everything to it. And so, your ability to have data quality matches to the best source that you have within it. So, you may have one that's at 95, 100%, that's fantastic. But for the most part, most people have duplicates in every system and, there's only so much. Plus, that's like the inside view. You know what you know. When you add Dun & Bradstreet data, now all of a sudden we give you the outside view as well. So you may be working with one customer, but now we can help you with all the different branches and subsidiaries that you may not be working with and understand more about that business.
We've got a couple of questions online as well.
Okay, so after this, we'll go to online.
Okay. Thanks. I really appreciate that you qualified your accuracy metrics with the confidence level that's associated with it. And I'm curious if you could elaborate on, in the context of using an LLM or GPT style model for entity resolution, how do you think about assigning a confidence score in that context?
That's
I could ask the model how confident it is, but I wouldn't believe its answer.
Exactly.
So you're operating in some embedding space beyond that, or using traditional tools to come up with the confidence?
That is a very good question. So yeah, you're right. If you were to use the ChatGPT for entity matching, what it's going to do is it's going to use fuzzy and similarity matching, right? So it can only tell you this is what I found. It's not going to give you any confidence. But from our perspective, what we have done is we have tweaked that we have this process called Duns right matching, where we have different, 7 different layers that we go through in order to define if it's a match or not, and to what level of confidence. So with this combination of AI, the generative AI, and our traditional learnings, we applied that to the model, and that's the product that Liz was talking about, the DNB Connect Manage. It takes advantage of DNB's historical best practices, and it combines it with what AI can do to give you, when you do a match, it tells you, I can give you this at this level of confidence, whether it's a 7, 8, 9, or 10, that this is a match or not. So that's what we have done.
We really embed that all in there because, to your point, we want you to be able to know this is the amount that you can automatically accept. You know that this is right. And then you may look at some of the clusters that may have a lower or no confidence and be able to use that in a similar way, but clean up that bucket of other that you might not have been able to do before.
So the first question is one that I get. It sounds like one I would get asked because I have to think about what's going to happen in the future. How will AI tools evolve to handle individual identity queries? Do you anticipate that deep research on entities or individuals will become effortless, or will privacy guardrails prohibit these kinds of examinations?
Do you want to go here?
I'll be honest with you. I think it will evolve to so much that we really don't even know today, right? I think for us, all we can do is look at the next 2 to 3 years and see how we can impact and evolve to it. Will privacy issues continue from a personal perspective? Absolutely, right? Things are going to get tighter and tighter. So as you look at some of these models coming along, you almost have to be a little bit more suspect, because what data is it built on? It's built on the data that's out there more socially than anything else. So from our perspective, we're going to focus on what we know and what we can do best, and anticipate we're going to continue to evolve to that.
So just to add to that, one thing to keep in mind is, again, with AI, you have seen in news that there's a lot of lawsuits that are being filed against OpenAI. It's copyright, this is copyright that. So privacy is definitely going to be a key concern. So from our perspective, that's one of the things you have to really be mindful of, right? What kind of data you're getting from OpenAI to make business decisions, right? So from entity resolution perspective and entity curation perspective, I don't think we have any plans, I can say that this with confidence, to rely on AI to help us create entities within our own database. Even now, we rely on multiple sources to validate that an entity is actually true, right? So we will continue to do that. We will augment that with AI to help us validate, but we're not going to solely rely on AI to just create an entity within our data set.
Anybody can scrape data,
Yeah.
right? So for us, even if people can, What we do is we make sure we validate it. We keep those stringent restrictions on it because we have to be accurate. You know, you can't make bad decisions with bad data, or you can. But for us, we need to make sure that those decisions that you're making are still based on a foundation of truth, and that's what we do.
All right, thank you. The second question, could you tell more how exactly generative AI helps in integrating data sources? What do you feed it? Models, data, both, et cetera. What it outputs in your use cases, documentation, working code, and so on.
So it really depends on where you are in the maturity of using AI. From integration perspective, it really can do all of the things that you just mentioned. But what I have seen customers use it for so far, again, because we're still in the experimentation phase, is helping bring the sources together. So when you're trying to integrate a source into an existing workflow, AI can tell you this is, the metadata. These are the categories. These are the data models that you can create out of it so that you can easily try to match it to the next data source or to the system that you're trying to integrate into. But eventually, like if you have the bandwidth and the patience and the trust, it could do all of the things that you just mentioned in your question there. But again, just be mindful, we're very early in experimentation phases of it. So just try it as a POC in a couple of cases and then see the limitations and the extent it can help with. And then I would take it from there instead of just delving totally into trusting AI to do a full integration.
Thank you for the person, on behalf of the person online. Thank you. Any other questions in the room?
First of all, wonderful presentation. Thank you. Could you please elaborate on the governance implementation using OpenAI or GPT services? Thank you.
So, so from governance perspective, what I have seen work well is creating policies and documentation to help the organization. So I had one customer that excuse me, that I was talking to, and what they did was they fed the data, one of the sources that they wanted to try the governance using OpenAI. And then they asked AI to create a documentation and policies, governance policies based on the best practices that the AI was able to gather from outside. It created a manual for them, and then they took that manual to their data governance committee. So this was a POC that they were doing, so this wasn't really live. They took that data governance policy and procedures manual to the governance committee, and then they reviewed it, and they tried to match it with what they were doing internally. So it was 98% of the way there. So they basically said, okay, so this is working, that's a checklist. The next thing they did was they created a system with an integration of AI into it to monitor the governance of that source. And if they noticed any lack of governance of any, someone was not compliant with it, then AI was able to detect it and send notifications. But this was still being done in the POC and is still being undertaken right now, but that's what I have seen as one of the use cases. But what I do see happen with it is the evolution of that, right? So if AI can do this to one source, you could do it to multiple sources as well. And it could really help enhance the governance within an organization where you typically don't have a lot of resources and also lack the SME side of data governance, right? So it could help with that. If it could understand the patterns and really in detail the source of your data, then it could help you apply governance and monitor it so that you don't really have to have data governance committee going through every single detail. It could just intelligently inform them. It doesn't eliminate the governance, right? It helps you inform that I am seeing this, you may want to look into this.
All right, thank you very much, Gurpinder and Elizabeth, for the presentation today.
Thank you so much, all.
Appreciate you all being here.
The next session this morning is at 10 a.m., so go grab coffee,